Welcome to the Full Moon Film Buff, episode 71. We're going to talk about Monster Dog from 1984. I watched this on Tubi. I had not seen this before. As always, we begin with the prominent crew and cast. This was directed by Claudio Fragasso, billed as Clyde Anderson, written by Claude Fragasso, also billed as Clyde Anderson, and Rossella Drudi. She was uncredited. Effects makeup was by Carlo De Marchese. Claudio Fragasso is best known for writing and directing the cult classic Best Worst Movie, Troll 2, in 1989. He has built a career cranking out schlocky, low-budget horror and exploitation flicks, developing a passionate cult following among fans of bad cinema. Even in his 70s, he continues making straight-to-DVD monster movies on shoestring budgets, often partnered with his wife, Rossella Drudi. Drudi began writing horror comics at 12 under a male pseudonym. She has worked as a screenwriter, editor, and assistant director, frequently uncredited. She's also published novels. Carlos De Marchese started building miniatures for architectural studios before transitioning to making miniatures for films, like Barbarella in 1968, Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 1977, and Alien in 1979. He went independent in 1980, which led to him working on Monster Dog. The cast includes Alice Cooper as Vince Raven, Victoria Vera as Sandra, Carlos Santurio as Frank, Pepa Sarsa as Mary Lou, billed as Jose Sarsa, Carol James as Angela, billed as Pepita James, Emilio Linder as Jordan, Ricardo Palacios as Sheriff Morrison, Luis Maluenda as Deputy, Barta Berry as the Old Man, billed as B. Barta Berry, Charlie Bravo as Lou, Fernando Conde as Ed, Fernando Baeza as Jerome, and Nino Bastida as Greg. Alice Cooper, born Vincent Damon Furrier, formed his first rock band at age 17, eventually settling on the name Alice Cooper for its twisted originality and misleading innocence, matching the band's bizarre and macabre stage theatrics. The band broke up in 1975, and Vincent legally changed his name to Alice Cooper. That year, he kicked off a highly theatrical tour, incorporating horror movie elements like dialogue from Vincent Price in his album and TV special. By the 70s, Cooper struggled with alcohol and drug addiction, but eventually got sober after rehabilitation. His early projects after getting clean included the 1984 horror film Monster Dog. However, his most memorable movie appearance was playing himself in Wayne's World in 1992, where the famous "We're not worthy" line became a popular catchphrase. Alice Cooper continues performing with his signature dark, horror-themed theatrics that made him famous. The rest of the cast were Spanish and Italian actors, so I don't have a lot of info on them. Hurts me a little to say this, but no, I do not recommend this movie. I love Alice Cooper as a musician and a performer, but this film is not good. Skip it. One interesting historical tidbit, since the actors in this film spoke 3 different languages, it was shot MOS, without live audio recording, and the dialogue was dubbed later in post-production for each language version. None of the actors dubbed their own voices, even in their native tongues. The only time you hear Alice Cooper's voice is during the 2 music videos. In a typical film, audio was recorded on set, along with the video using microphones on the actors. But with MOS shooting, only the video footage is captured, and the audio track is replaced later under optimal studio conditions. This allows for pristine audio quality without background noise and is commonly used for films that require dubbing into multiple languages, visual effects shots where the audio needs to be replaced anyway, or very noisy locations. The main benefit of MOS is the ability to re-record clear dialogue looped by actors in the studio environment during post-production. The acronym MOS likely refers to the device that syncs the camera and the audio motors, but its exact meaning is unknown. Let's go through the synopsis. We begin with a music video for Vince Raven's new song, Identity Crisis. We see his name a lot. Cut to Vince and his girlfriend Sandra driving to Vince's old childhood home to shoot another music video. Joss, the house caretaker, prepares a welcome home party. He hears strange noises. After searching the house, he finds a pack of wild dogs growling outside his door. They are not good boys. The dogs attack him. Vince and the film crew are stopped at a roadblock by Sheriff Morrison and Deputy Dan, who knew Vince as a kid. They warn the crew about recent deadly dog attacks in the area and advise them to arm themselves. The sheriff makes a cryptic comment about Vince's dad, which Vince refuses to discuss. After the crew leaves, the sheriff and deputy are killed by something very much not a dog. Vince accidentally hits and kills a German shepherd with the van. An old blood-stained man appears, warning them they will all die, except Vince, before disappearing into the woods. Vince and Sandra chase him, trying to get him help, but a monster scares them back to the van to continue their journey. When the crew arrives at the large, derelict house, Joss is missing. The place has a cavernously huge entrance hall and feels like a haunted house with cobwebs and flaking paint everywhere. Vince takes a shotgun to search for Joss, while the rest of the crew eats the food that was meant for the party. One crew member, Angela, claims to be psychic, and she agrees with the bloody old man that everyone is going to die. Unable to find Joss, Vince gives up searching and wanders into a room where he discovers a book on a table about werewolves. Angela has a nightmare where the bloody old man murders everyone in the house. She finds Vince reading in a rocking chair, but when he stands up, he's revealed to be the monster dog. Angela wakes up screaming and tells the crew about her dream, claiming Vince is a werewolf, though the crew just jokes about it. Later, Sandra finds Vince reading the werewolf book in the same rocking chair. He finally explains that his father had lycanthropy, the werewolf curse, which Vince claims is a heart condition. 20 years ago, Vince's father was blamed for a rash of deaths and burned alive after being stabbed and doused with gasoline. The next day, the crew begins filming the music video for Vince's song See Me in the Mirror, with Angela dressed as a bride. As she walks down the stairs, Joss's corpse crashes through an upstairs window. Angela flees in shock while the others investigate how Joss died. Meanwhile, Vince searches for Angela. During this time, 4 strange men cut the telephone line, swearing that they're going to kill Vince Raven. As the crew prepares to leave, 4 armed men arrive claiming to be hunting a killer dog pack. They con their way into the house and overpower the crew, waiting for Vince while announcing plans to shoot him with a silver bullet. When Vince and Angela do return, the leader accidentally shoots and kills Angela. Vince kills 3 of the armed men in a shootout before a wild dog pack breaks in, attacking the crew and the last armed man. The monster dog finally appears. Sandra and Mary Lou flee upstairs, chased by the dogs, while the monster dog kills the others. The dogs calm down when Vince shows up, allowing the women to get to the car. Mary Lou accuses Vince of being the monster dog, which he doesn't deny. Since the armed men had the car keys, Vince and Sandra have to go back for them, leaving Mary Lou alone in the car. I wonder what's going to happen. Vince and Sandra get the car keys after Sandra shoots the last surviving gunman. As they pull away, Mary Lou's corpse falls on Sandra from the back seat, where the monster dog attacks Vince. Surprise! Sandra jumps out before the car crashes. She hears a gunshot and finds the dying old man, who reveals that he was attacked by Vince's father, becoming a lycanthrope himself and passing the werewolf curse back to Vince. Sandra finds Vince in the beginning stages of transforming into a werewolf. He begs her to kill him before he turns into a werewolf. Sandra shoots him and then has a nervous breakdown. The film ends with a reprise of the Identity Crisis video, now interspersed with clips from the story. Oh, this film hurt my eyes. Werewolf transformation scenes and makeup jobs have improved so much by this point. A little background research reveals the crew had some major technical issues with the makeup and practical puppet effects, issues severe enough to require adjustments to the script. The crew knew the effects didn't work, and they did the best they could with what they had. Spare yourself. It's not... Now, part of the problem with this film is that it is such a mishmash of werewolf lore. Vince is accused of being the werewolf because his father was a werewolf, which argues for lycanthropy being an inheritable condition. Vince's revelation that his father had a disease adds evidence for that. But the bloody old man directly contradicts this by asserting he survived the werewolf attack 20 years ago and became a lycanthrope himself. That's directly taken from the traditional infectious model. Vince beginning to transform after being bitten adds evidence for that. So, which is it? You could maybe reconcile the two traditions if the curse was a mental affliction, but Vince's transformation at the end of the movie puts a rest to that theory. Additionally, we also have the weird lore of the wild dogs being so aggressive and violent. Oh, and are the dogs controlled by the monster dog? Then why do they calm down and let Vince pass with his allies? Nothing adds up in this movie. One theme I want to talk about is how much fog is in this movie. This movie proves that you can have too much of a good thing. Few atmospheric elements are as effective at establishing a sense of dread and suspense in horror movies as a dense, obscuring fog. Fog is such a standard trope, its mere presence alerts audiences that danger and the unknown lurk ahead. Filmmakers have known the unsettling power of fog and have employed it to maximize fright since the earliest days of cinema. At its core, fog cultivates fear by obscuring visibility, distorting the audience's perception of the surrounding environment. Like darkness, fog shrouds the world in an eerie, indefinable haze, breeding unease by masking potential threats. Viewers anxiously wonder what presences lay beyond the veil of the mist, feeding some of our deepest primitive fears of the unknown. In addition to its psychological effects, fog is a practical and cost-effective tool because it can be easily created and controlled on set using fog machines and diffusion techniques. This allows directors to manufacture an ominous, haunting ambiance on cue during filming. Fog's malleability as a visual effect permits shots to be precisely modulated, controlling how much of the surroundings are obscured to ratchet up suspense and fear of the unseen. Additionally, fog photography avoids expensive and time-consuming complex digital effects work in post-production. Fog represents an economic way for even low-budget horror films to cultivate a sense of disorienting terror through creative camera work and lighting alone. Its adaptability makes fog a go-to technique for horror creators to maximize impact while minimizing overhead. Iconic horror films have capitalized on fog's unique ability to build tension and amplify jump scares through obscured vision. A prime example is John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978, in which the small Illinois town of Haddonfield is blanketed in a dense fog, allowing the unstoppable killer Michael Myers to materialize suddenly from the mist to strike. 2 years later, Carpenter made an entire supernatural horror film titled The Fog, surrounding an idyllic coastal town in a foreboding mist. This brings me to my favorite film in this little subgenre, Frank Darabont's 2007 adaptation of the Stephen King novella, The Mist. It's fantastic. However, like any tool or trick, you can rely on it too much. This film is an excellent example of what happens when fog becomes a crutch. An excessive amount of thick fog renders the visuals an indecipherable haze. The image becomes so obscured that the scene loses definition and clarity. This makes it difficult for the audience to discern what's happening or to perceive any sense of the environment. While judicious use of fog ramps up tension remarkably, overusing the effect reduces the impact. If every scene is enveloped in a dense fog, it starts to feel monotonous, and the fear factor decreases through overfamiliarity. Modulating fog levels is key. Excessive fog can accidentally obscure carefully planned camera work like artful framing, dramatic blocking, or actors' movements. If the fog overwhelms the scene, the intended visual composition and choreography get lost in a murky haze. For horror films using practical special effects, like creatures, gore, stunts, and more, having too much thick fog can inadvertently hide or muddy the effectiveness and illusion of those costly effect shots. So while fog is undeniably an effective horror tool, its overuse and haphazard application can counteract its atmospheric benefits, and this movie is proof positive. So, if you like lycanthropes, like, share, and subscribe. Contribute your thoughts and additional observations in the comments below. Let me know what I missed or what you noticed. Next, I plan on discussing Teen Wolf from 1985. Keep your eye on the moon, a silver bullet in the chamber, and we'll see you back next episode.